Welcome back to my channel, guys, and greetings from Savannah, Georgia. I have to say that this is the perfect backdrop for a video on Savannah, Georgia. I'm staying at a manor in Savannah, Georgia, which is very consistent with the ethos of Savannah, Georgia. If you're not familiar with Savannah, Georgia, it's your classic American southern town. It's not a huge city by any means. Usually when I make these travel videos, it's on a much bigger city or a country that I'm exploring for the first time. But I had to make a video on Savannah because Savannah is this gem in the United States. It's actually my favorite town in the country. And I try to come here every autumn because it's a calm, quaint town. I always feel so much more relaxed when I come here and stroll about. There's the southern charm, the southern hospitality, these gorgeous, gorgeous homes in the historic district, the Spanish moss dangling from these glorious, lush oak trees. It's a beautiful place, but there's also this like eeriness to Savannah, Georgia, which is why I like coming here in autumn. It's a little bit spooky, I guess, and there's a folklore to this place. So it's very much a beautiful place to go that carries its own innate charm. The reason I wanted to make a gay travel video here, despite having been here so many times, and I've made some videos about Savannah, Georgia and experiences here, Savannah is an unusual place in the South in that, of course, the South in the United States is notoriously more conservative. But then you have these random pockets that are known to be more progressive. Savannah in particular has always had this reputation of being this eccentric and eclectic place nestled in basically the Bible Belt, which includes the state of Georgia. But the town itself has a very interesting history of being sequestered for a very long time. Up until modern transportation, Savannah was this isolated town that had its own sort of identity, and the sort of folklore is that people who lived here weren't too keen on outsiders. It's sort of like if you lived in a bubble, you were part of the community, but it wasn't very accepting to others outside of the bubble. And within the bubble of Savannah, you had all these like kooky characters. And this was chronicled in a best-selling book called Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. You might have heard of it. It was a huge book in the 90s. And it's actually a nonfiction book. It was based on a true story, a true crime that happened in Savannah, Georgia. And get this, the crime was this wealthy, I believe he was an antique collector, this wealthy entrepreneur in Savannah who actually helped restore the historic district. He helped restore a lot of the gorgeous houses here. And get this, he was on trial for shooting and murdering his male prostitute. And this guy was like beloved in this town. So just think about like how gnarly, that gives you an idea already of what kind of town this is. And in that book, there's also another character who was based on an actual person who was a trans performer around town, a well-known, again, character around town who performed. I guess sort of like the precursor to now what we have as drag queen culture, except she wasn't a drag queen, she was a trans woman, despite this town being very much a southern town. Clearly based on this story alone that I just shared and the plot of this book, Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, you get the gist that this town has genuinely always had this unusual and eccentric flavor. The other thing that keeps Savannah having a more, I guess, progressive side to it is the fact that it's a college town. There's a well-known art school here called SCAD, and you know how that goes. Art schools always have a lot of queer kids, right? So it's pretty interesting, the sort of blend of all this, that you're walking around a town that feels very Americana, old school Americana. Actually, this reminds me of when I went to Missoula, Montana last year, where you feel like you're in a town from the movies, you know, American sort of stereotypical small town. But then you'd be pleasantly surprised by how progressive it feels in terms of the kind of people, the variety you see in people around you, in terms of how they express themselves, and clearly LGBT people. I will say, though, that over the years, just like a lot of places, right, post-COVID, the gay bar scene here seems to have diminished. When I first used to come here about 5 years ago, I remember that there were a few gay bars towards the north of the historic district near where the Savannah River is. And don't get me wrong, I remember exploring them at the time and being very underwhelmed. I mean, again, this is not like a big city where there's a huge, sprawling gay community. But I just checked again this time, and it looks like most of those bars have shut down. I only recognize the name of one of them. Again, this is part of the evolution, I think, of everybody being glued to their phones and dating apps and hookup apps, and also just the effects of COVID. A lot of the shops that I used to stop into on my visits to Savannah are actually no longer here either. So, again, I think this is just part of a cultural evolution beyond just Savannah, related to the effects of the pandemic, the lingering effects even of the pandemic. Of course, I've checked out the apps while here, and this time I am leaving Savannah kind of uninspired by the crop, but it's always been hit or miss for me here in Savannah. I've had visits here where I had, frankly, some of the sexiest encounters I've ever had with guys. Met some of the sexiest guys ever in Savannah. And then the next time I would come here, it's like radio silence. And I'm like, where is everybody? I think being a small town, it's very much rooted in seasonality, Savannah. So depending on the week that you're here or the weekend, if it's peak season, if it's a slow period, it'll totally affect who's around. But what's great about Savannah is that regardless of the gay travel piece, it's such a walkable place, the historic district that is, that when you have nothing else to do, you can just go for a stroll, a 10-minute stroll, and it's the most rewarding thing. Like, it's just such a beautiful, charming place, a lush place, trees everywhere. There's a park literally every few blocks. So I highly recommend Savannah, Georgia to any traveler, gay or not, single or not, looking or not. It's my favorite town in America, and I'm glad I got to share, some of these photos and videos with you during this video. Please let me know if you've been to Savannah, and if so, what your take is on this little gem in Georgia. Catch you next time.